Okay, we are live on Facebook. We've got some audience and I'm recording. So I'll go ahead and kick this off. Again, I apologize if there's some background noise sometimes. I will keep myself muted most of the time. But thank you so much, everybody watching this. I'm Naomi. I work for Councilman Amanda Sandoval. This is our Ask a Planner series, where at the end of every month, we try to invite another agency or department to come and talk directly, answer questions in a very casual way with constituents about a different topic. And so today we are so lucky to have Grace Rink and Berenice Garcia Tellez here to talk about CASR, the Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resilience department, and all the amazing work that they're doing. So the format of this is that we're going to kick it over to them for a bit of a presentation, just talking about their work and some of the programs that they're working on right now. And then we open up a lot to questions and answers. So feel free for those on Facebook, hello, put questions in Facebook and I will moderate. I'll bring those up later. We can ask them, we can interact that way. And I would say, oh, and then one last thing, we do record this. So we are recording it right now. We will post this to Councilman Sandoval's YouTube account, her YouTube page, so you can watch that at any time. And with that, Grace and Berenice, thanks so much.
All right, thanks so much, Naomi. Hello, everybody. I'm Grace Rink. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency for the City and County of Denver. I'm going to share my screen and give you a presentation. Let me make sure I get this right. All right, great. And I have to minimize myself because I don't need to see myself on screen. Okay. So thank you very much, District 1, for inviting us here. I'm going to give a presentation that takes about 10 minutes, and it will just generally describe our office, the Climate Protection Fund, and I'll talk a little bit about our Sustainability Advisory Council. And then Berenice is also going to give a presentation. And I think then after the two of us have gone, then we're opening it up for questions. So many of us, I'm assuming all of us here and those of you watching, have known for a long time that climate change is an existential threat. And each new report from the United Nations makes it clear that the planet has crossed over from climate change to a climate crisis. And the mission of our office is written in Denver's municipal code. And our first charge is to act with urgency to mitigate the causes of climate change and to strengthen the resilience of our communities to the environmental changes that are always upon us, or that are already upon us. Now, I always say that stakeholder engagement is in our DNA because this agency was created out of a collaboration that was spearheaded by active residents. It was supported by the mayor and members of city council. And now our office works to pass new public policies that will require new and existing buildings to achieve net zero by 2040, to ensure that Denver's electrical grid is powered by 100% renewable energy by 2030, and that access to electrical vehicle technology is widespread. But that's not enough. When we do this work, we're committed to centering our focus on equity. And what that means for us is that any policies we pass and any programs we offer must directly benefit the people and communities most harmed by climate change impacts. And we understand that to mean people of color and indigenous people, low income and under-resourced communities, people living with chronic health conditions, babies, children, and older adults. And when this office was first created in the middle of 2020, we're almost 2 years old, we only had 11 staff people, and we had a budget that was mostly staff as well. Now we have more than tripled in size. We are nearly 38, getting on towards 40 staff people. And we have a budget of over $40 million. And this seems like a pretty boring slide, but I wanted to show you this chart to give you a sense of all the different things we do. So I'm going to focus this presentation a lot on our Climate Protection Fund and the type of work that we get out into communities, but know that there's a lot of other work happening behind the scenes. We have a lot of experts in public policy on energy policy, both for buildings and homes and internal to the city, but we also advocate for the city's position in front of the Public Utilities Commission. So really looking at statewide energy policies. We have folks who are working on zero waste and trying to get us to a zero waste future where we live in a truly circular economy and we're sending as little solid waste as possible to the landfill. We have folks who are working on communication and engagement, and Bernice is going to talk a lot about that. And of course, we have your standard finance and administration folks, but without them, we couldn't get our money out to the community, and we certainly need to do that. Now, the primary metric that we track is the city's greenhouse gas emissions inventory. The pie chart is a point in time that shows you what our greenhouse gas emissions inventory is, and it tells you that the majority of our emissions, 66%, come from energy use in our buildings and homes. And that's followed by transportation as the next largest sector that's emitting emissions. What's interesting about the transportation sector is that although it's second in greenhouse gas emissions, it's the #1 contributor to poor air quality and air pollution emissions in Denver. Now the bar chart on the other side, that shows you our progress over time. So our baseline year is 2005. And what this tells you is that with 2020 data, that's the most recent data available right now, we've actually achieved over 20% reduction in emissions. And that's great. Most of that, though, is due to the fact that Xcel Energy has made a lot of its grid, 34% of our electrical grid is renewable. And so that's where a lot of our emissions reduction comes from. So we still have plenty of work to do ourselves in reducing emissions by reducing the amount of energy that we use to heat our buildings and homes, and also obviously in our transportation sector. So previously, Denver's goal for a number of years has been to achieve an 80% reduction in emissions by 2040, but that didn't keep pace with climate science. And so just this past year, we changed our goal. We would now like to reduce our emissions 100%, eliminate emissions by 2040. That is aligned with the climate science. The question is, how do we get there, right? And so what I have listed here are what I call our knowns and our unknowns. Now we know that Xcel Energy is committed to making 80% of its electrical grid renewable by 2030. That's tremendous. That's a really great partner for us. And that's why we're so interested in getting more of our home heating and building heating and space and water heating to be electrical rather than natural gas, because if that electricity is powered by renewables, then that reduces the emissions from our buildings and homes. So we know that that's happening. We have a new building performance policy for large commercial buildings in the city that will achieve at least an 80% reduction in their emissions by 2040. And that's at least. So we know that's happening. We are very close to getting some initial electrification requirements into the building code. That's happening right now. We're very hopeful that that will be presented to City Council this fall. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the known category. Things we don't know. We don't know what's happening exactly with waste diversion policies, both for the city itself and citywide policies. We also don't know exactly what may or may not happen at the state level. That's still in the unknown category, but we're working on it. The bigger ones we don't know is what's really happening at the federal level, which then comes down to the state. So, for example, a city can't control emissions from vehicles. Vehicle emissions are regulated by the federal government. So we, obviously, we look to them for leadership in that category. But so we have our goal. We know some of the ways we're going to get there. I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes talking about the Climate Protection Fund. So thank you to those of you who voted in favor of ballot initiative 2A in November of 2020. That created a new 0.25% sales tax, which raises up to $40 million a year for our office. And it has just been an absolute game changer for Denver. So I can tell you that climate offices all over the country have some of the same great ideas that we have, but the difference is that we have money that can actually bring those ideas to life. So the Climate Protection Fund has the 6 allowable use categories that you see here on this slide. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll be able to answer some questions, but I will go through a couple to give you examples. So the first is workforce development. What you see on this slide, the text up at the top in italics, that's the actual ballot language. So that tells you what we're allowed to spend the money on. And then I'm pleased to tell you that in our first year of investments, we've invested over nearly $3 million in local job training programs that are really along a spectrum, starting with youth in high school and exposing them to green jobs and careers in the solar and green building industry, all the way up through pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships to give people opportunities to get into these really well-paying, family-sustaining wage jobs and that are a true career path. And so we're really excited about the work that we're doing with these organizations. And here's another one, sustainable transportation. This has just been pumping out one really neat, innovative idea after another. So again, you see up here in the italics, the actual what we're allowed to spend the money on. And we have done a lot of programs in this past year. One that you may have heard of that's been catching a lot of news lately are our rebates for e-bikes. That has just been such an exciting program. And what it's really demonstrated is that there is demand in the market. People are really interested in these technologies. People would like to get out of their cars when they have that opportunity. And what e-bikes do is it really opens up just enough more distance to get someplace or to carry things, whether it's groceries or getting kids to and from daycare. That can be done safely, quickly, and efficiently on an e-bike. And people have really taken that opportunity. So we've been excited to see the enthusiasm for that program. But we've done other things too. Some of you may have heard about the Montbello Connector, which is a free ride hailing app in the Montbello community. It's a pilot program that's being run by the city. And we contributed funding so that one of the 3 vehicles is an all-electric vehicle. And that there are plans to replicate that in other parts of the city, because again, just like the e-bike rebates, it's proven to be very popular. Now, what's interesting about the Climate Protection Fund is that the ordinance that created it includes what we call the equity mandate. So oftentimes when there's a new fund created that raises money for the city, it goes to a direct purpose that the city often uses for its own programs, like the Parks Legacy Fund, which is really dedicated to expanding and enhancing our park services. In this case, this money, we're really supposed to get it out into the community to help people and organizations do the work that they know needs to be done on the ground that really helps reduce the negative impacts of climate change. So what it says here is that we are supposed to endeavor to spend at least 50% of the dollars for the direct benefit of those groups I mentioned earlier who are most impacted by climate change. And I'm so pleased to tell you that just in this first year of our commitments, we are over 50% on the dollars that meet that criteria. And good news, our first annual report will be released next week. So it will be released on June 30th, and it will have a complete listing of every project that we have committed to in this first year. And it will have lots of detailed information about how all the programs have been rolled out in this first year. So we're going to be very excited to get that out to you soon. I want to talk a little bit about the Sustainability Advisory Council. This is a volunteer opportunity that I'd like all of you to keep in mind if you're interested in getting involved with our office. So the city of Denver has a lot of boards and commissions where people can volunteer to get involved in the work of city agencies. And this one is the one that we manage. The way it works is each of these committees here, buildings and homes, climate adaptation, and so on, which you can understand align with the work of our office. Each one of these committees has 20 people on it. So that's 140 available seats for people to get engaged with our work. What happens at those committees, they meet monthly and they talk about what are the issues that our office is working on, what are the issues that people are hearing about in their community, and how should our agency be working to address those. We then take that information and it actually becomes part of our work. And then we come back to the committees and we actually tell them what we did or didn't do with their ideas. And I think that's a really, really important part of this process, this relationship that we want to have with our stakeholders. We don't want to just hear from you and go away and then have you trust that we did the work. We actually want to come back to you and tell you what we did or didn't do with it and why. This is too much text for one slide, but the role of the Sustainability Advisory Council essentially is they actually vote on recommendations that they send to us formally and say, CASR, we think you should work on this. And then we, like I said, we come back to them when we tell them what we did or didn't do on that work. The only thing that the SAC doesn't do is the SAC doesn't actually lobby city council or other units of government. They advise us, and we work with other city agencies to do work that may be outside of our scope. And then they don't participate in any of our contracting or personnel decisions. But it's a great opportunity. We usually have applications open in February or March. And the council office will always have that. It'll also be on our website. So we'll make sure that that's well presented for you. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to take this down, and I think we'll go, Naomi, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll go straight to Berenice. Is that right?
That's great.
And then,
Absolutely.
Oh, am I still sharing? I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll go straight to Berenice, and then we can open ourselves up for questions and discussion. So thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, just as Grace say, I need to minimize myself. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Berenice Garcia Telles. I am the Equity Administrator for the Energize Denver program. And today I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about our community engagement that we have done with under-resourced buildings that are our vulnerable communities here in Denver. And as Grace mentioned, we are really doing this because most of our emissions are coming from the commercial and multifamily spaces. So we need to make sure that we're addressing these sectors. So we have a new ordinance that actually started in 2016 with a benchmarking program as a voluntary program where buildings are reporting their energy use. And as you can see on this slide, 49% of our emissions are coming from this sector. So we need to really tackle and do something. But as Grace mentioned in her presentation, equity is in our heart. So we want to make sure that all our policies and implementations are equitable, and we're really helping the people who need it the most to reach our targets in 2030. So who are these under-resourced facilities, under-resourced communities? I want to mention very quickly some important concepts that I believe Grace already mentioned. Some of these is we want to help community in Denver that represent frontline communities. And as she mentioned, is people of color, people with chronic disease, people with young children, older adults, those who speak other languages than English, people of that they are indigenous, and those low to medium income communities. We also want to help buildings that are located in the NEST neighborhoods. The NEST neighborhoods are categorized as a neighborhood equity and stabilization. This classification came after the recession in 2008 and 2009. It was produced by the Economic Development Department in Denver, and we can see like a high income stress in these areas. The energy burden is high, and now they are working on reclassifying these neighborhoods. So you may see these changes. So far, we have East Colfax, Elvira Swansea, Gloveville, Montvelo, North Park Hill, Sun Valley, Valverde, Villa Park, West Colfax, that is one of your district, and Westwood. We also want to support buildings or communities helping nonprofits, human service providers. An example is the Red Cross, senior centers, churches, libraries. So after an analysis of data of our buildings and all the equity indicators that we have at the city, we came with these metrics. We want to support buildings and communities that are located in the nice neighborhoods, and many of you are familiar with the inverted L. You can see, you know, our vulnerable communities and neighborhoods here where we see a high utility burden, high income stress, the asthma rate are high as well, the racial composition, mainly people of color, and we can see some of your neighborhoods like in West Colfax, we have Montvelo, Sun Valley. So we want to help communities and buildings living there. Also buildings that are affordable housing. We know that some of our vulnerable communities live in this type of buildings. Also buildings supporting frontline communities that I mentioned. And also buildings that are nonprofits or human service providers. And also we're asking community members, which building is important for you? And you will like the city, if it's possible, to help. Some people are telling us like literally, please support some of our convenience stores because we don't have supermarkets nearby in our communities. So if they tell us that and we analyze it's eligible, we will be able to support it. So we're doing a lot of community engagement, and our main goal is to build trust and understandings of the barriers and the needs of these communities, not only for tenants, but also for the property owners, and also let them understand why this energy ordinance came out and the importance of it. Also to gather insights about the energy burden and the housing conditions of these buildings, and also to co-create together the services and incentives that will help property owners and tenants in meeting these energy requirements. And of course, identified some of the pilots for the projects that Grace mentioned on electrification, solar energy, energy efficiency. And of course, we want to avoid unintended consequences such as gentrification. And what else as a city and or departments can do? Because yeah, we are focusing on climate action, but we also have relations with other departments in the city. If you tell us like we need more trees, we will make sure that we communicate that. If you need better lighting or there is crime, we can pass all that knowledge to the respective departments. These are some examples of the meetings that we have had. We had one in Mombello, and I just want to make a quick update here that these relationships that we're building with community are creating all other collaborations for the tenants. For example, the people attended that Mombello meeting, they were able to connect with the Red Cross to change for free smoke detectors because some of them didn't have any. We also are doing assessments at some places in some valley like Las Bodegas, the Latino Art Cultural Center. They will be pilots for electrification and solar. We also had two meetings in Westwood, one with the small business owners where we learn about their energy needs, and we let them know about all our energy efficiency programming and also Excel incentives. We also met with tenants in a church, and this was amazing. The meeting was in Spanish with interpretation to English and to Vietnamese for community members. We also met with some property managers from affordable housing units. For the West Colfax that it may be interested for this district, we met with leaders from WeCan, and they help us to identify buildings in need, and we will follow up with those property owners. We also met with property owners last week, and we're having two more meetings with Asian Owned Business on July 14, and I'm gonna send the information to Naomi for her to put it on the Facebook or any further communication. This is an example of the meetings that we're doing. We're making sure that it's culturally relevant. It's in English and Spanish, Vietnamese, that are the most spoken languages in Denver. And we compensate the people for their time. We provide food, transportation, childcare to make it accessible for families and property owners and tenants to attend. So our decision process is to do a lot of outreach to make sure we're hearing all the voices, identify where are the buildings, follow up with them and with our key partners to then create these services and incentives that will allow them to meet these energy requirements, but also improve their housing conditions and their neighborhoods. This is some research, and I know I am short on time, but we're hearing that low-income people, they don't really use a lot of energy. It's more about the housing quality where they live. And sometimes they have to put off healthcare to pay these bills, and includes the energy bill. And half of the participants living in these buildings or these communities spend 40% or more of their income in the rent. So, and there are more findings that hopefully I will be able to share my slides with you. You can watch the recording later, but we're making sure that with all of this input, we're bringing it to the table to produce services and technical assistance that will help these communities in their journey to climate action and energy efficiency. And this is very interesting. Some of the remember I told you that we are bringing these maps and asking people which buildings are important for them. We're seeing that churches and schools are top choices because people that they don't have access to cooling or heating, they go to these places to get comfort and get warm and cool. So some opportunities for you watching as a tenant, there are free assessments for business that they can get replacements for LED lights for free. We also have an equity grant program for minority-owned businesses up to 10,000 K. I'm going to put the links on the Facebook, and I will send it to the council member for her to share with you all. We also have free assessments for multifamily that they can do direct installs for LED lights, shower heads, aerators in all the units, and that is through Excel Energy, and there is one for low-income programs with Energy Rich Colorado. And we have something coming soon, the Healthy Efficient Homes programs. This will be for single home families, so stay tuned. We also have opportunities for building owners and buildings in general. They can get free assessments if they are up to 50,000 square feet with Excel Energy. There is also a program for low income and multifamily and nonprofits with Excel Energy, and also with Energy Rich Colorado if they are affordable housing. If there are any nonprofits watching this webinar or on Facebook Live, make sure that you know about the NEEP program through Energy Rich Colorado, because they can help you to replace the roof, windows, LED lights, if you are a nonprofit and more on. We also have incentives for new buildings. If there is anyone watching that is, thinking in design, or I want to go all electric, we have some incentives. Make sure to check this link. As I mentioned, we have the equity grant for small buildings, and we're already providing technical assistance for all building owners and property managers on this Energize Denver ordinance. And there is some webinars that we're putting together for property owners to learn more about financing. And what the city is doing already, because we really take very seriously and we want to help the communities who need it the most. So we're already investing some funding to fully electrify the Forum apartments that is operated by the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And this will provide a lot of benefits for these communities. And we see that is a pressing issue here in Denver. So that will reduce costs for the building, better cooling, the air quality will improve, create jobs, and we'll have happy tenants. So this is one of my final slides, just to mention that, yes, we have all these requirements and ordinance, but there are other benefits that can help by applying these requirements that improve our health, because the air quality indoor outdoor gets better. Our safety is better because we don't have exposure to gas, and also better comfort, and especially now in the summer. Imagine in the future with all climate change changing, our energy cost decrease, and also operation and maintenance. We create green jobs for the people installing all these solar panels, these HVAC units, and we will have better neighborhoods, and this advances equity. And as Grace mentioned, it's a very mandate in our heart, and we will try to do the most that we can. And I open to any question and discussion. I just like to finish with a quote that we as an institution, we have the responsibility to change the world, but we need you to get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This is so fascinating to me personally, and we have tons of questions. So maybe I will start with, we have a bunch of them for Berenice, actually, about some of these programs and equity. So let's see. I'll just go in order that they came in. We had a question, one of your slides that was talking about how to, I forget which one it was. The slide that mentioned avoiding unintended consequences of your work, such as gentrification. And so the question is, how would some program like this potentially cause gentrification? And how do you make sure that it doesn't?
Yeah, we did some analysis, and when property owners, they have to make all these investments to reduce their energy use and comply with the ordinance. So sometimes, because of lack of funding or lack of resources, they may pass the cost to the tenants living in the buildings. So and the tenants they won't have enough resources, to pay the rent, pay the utility bill, and their basic needs. So they will look at moving out, and if they move out, then a developer can come and tear down the building and build more high-end buildings, and then people will be moving out because they cannot afford living there. So by talking to community members and getting insight of what property owners need to meet these energy requirements, that it won't affect to increase and pass the cost to tenants, we will avoid that. And we want to keep, we want to try to keep people in Denver. And I don't know, Grace, if you want to add something else.
I could just add another example. A lot of folks would like to see us planting trees all over the city and to do it as quickly as possible. But oftentimes our communities that have a low tree canopy, so communities that don't have a lot of trees, fear that trees are the first sign of displacement that is going to come. So we'd be very sensitive about how we actually go about that with communities. And so our office actually now we've just created 2 contracts with nonprofit organizations that are going to work in the nest communities, like Berenice mentioned. We're actually going to work with people who live there to decide where they would like to see trees. And then we will help them get them planted. And that includes on private property. So it could be someone who lives there and it's their home and it's been their family's home for 50 years or 70 years. If they would like a tree, we will give them a tree. And we're also going to be providing 3 years of maintenance for that tree. So what we're not doing is we're not just going into a community and saying, here you go, we're going to start planting street trees all along your street because that should be something that you want. We're not making that decision. We're actually working with them to find out where do they want trees and how to do it most equitably.
Awesome. We actually just had another, or I guess it's more of a comment, pop in that 3 years of maintenance is incredibly important because they said trees are expensive and to maintain, and they are. I know I have to get a bunch of trimming done on a big, wonderful mature tree that's on my property, and I was shocked at how much money it is. And if people don't have the resources or don't know that trees do need maintenance, because actually I didn't really know that they needed maintenance. We want those trees to grow up and be big and have big canopy and have benefits. So that's really awesome. All right, moving on. Okay, yeah, we had another question that was along the lines of how do you ensure renovations to buildings don't get passed on to tenants? Here we go. I am a business tenant. How can I convince my landlord to make my building more sustainable?
Sure. And we have, as I mentioned, we have these community connections with business tenants and also property owners. And we also have a program called Smart Leasing, where it provides like mediation between landlord and tenants. And I'm happy to send you the link that you can share with this community member.
Wow. Smart Leasing, that's a program in CASR.
Yes, we have I can even put the connection with my colleague, Lucy, and that person can follow up with her. We really need, because it has like example of how these energy improvements and sustainability can be in the contract, and that can show like the benefits for the owner. Like, if you make me change my lighting, my HVAC, my kitchen equipment, your value, your reputation of your building will be better. The benefits of you doing this, and at the same time, the tenant will reduce their operating cost. Yes, I'm gonna put on the chat more information about it.
Awesome, thank you. And any of these links I can gather and I can put when we post this video, I can put these links in the video description. And also actually we have a request to share the slide deck. So if there's a way to do that or have it posted online, I could link to it also in the.
We can send you the PDFs after this.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much good info in there. All right. Question about the Montbello EV shuttle. So that was a pilot program. When are the plans to create other EV shuttle services in neighborhoods expected to move forward, and what other neighborhoods are under consideration?
Those are good questions. Now, there's a different agency that is running that. It's the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. We have staff people who are collaborating with them on that. I actually don't know exactly which neighborhoods they're looking at next. But I know that they're definitely looking at Nest neighborhoods, and Dottie has an equity index that they're looking at. How soon? Possibly as soon as this fall. I think it's unclear. I think that the supply chain issues are real in acquiring vehicles. That has been a real problem. So I can't say that it's going to be that soon, but I think certainly that's the goal.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have some other comments about how RTD has failed Denver in terms of, it's a regional organization versus what needs Denver has. And so a bunch of kudos around that and some more questions. But I think, that I assume that is more under Dottie, Department of Transportation Infrastructure. But obviously the fact that they're electric vehicles is awesome.
And I just want to add that for our Montbello meeting, we used the EV connector to bring building tenants to our community event. It was nice to, to gather all sustainability programming and initiatives in just one place.
Yeah, absolutely. Will the proposed building sustainability enhancements lead to buildings being LEED certified? I guess question like, what is LEED certification? What are the standards CASR is looking for?
Well, I'll start, Berenice, and then hand it back to you. So we do not require LEED certification of private buildings. The city and county of Denver does have a LEED requirement for its own building. So if we build a new building, we require ourselves to build it to the LEED Gold standard. And then I'll go ahead and hand off to Berenice to talk about how that applies to the building she's working with.
Yeah, Grace, I think you have said everything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but having an extra certification can help you reach your energy requirements faster, because that is like to have the highest efficient equipment and envelope, solar, some EV charging. So, but we don't require. That gives you like extra points and advance your journey to reduce your energy consumption, but we are not requiring that. And for the buildings, I'm working with, I tell them every single step you do to reduce your energy consumption is good. So I don't even mention those certifications, because I don't want to discourage them. But of course, if someone asks for more information, that is like a resource we can provide.
Awesome. All right, back to some more residential questions. I think a lot of people listening in the future are probably homeowners or renters. Although we do have a bunch of businesses in our district, of course. But okay, question, what's up with the incentives? Did they run out? Will there be more? Also, this person says, I got a quote for doing like solar, I guess heat pumps and those, but it was still too expensive. I wouldn't get a return on my investment for about 15 to 20 years, and I don't know how long I'm really going to stay in this house, but I believe in the cause and I'm not sure what to do.
Okay, there's a lot packed in there. So first I'll talk about the rebates. So right now, the e-bike rebates are closed. We're not taking new applications, but we expect to open it again in just a few weeks in mid-July. And so the reason for that is all the people who received vouchers in this first round, they have 60 days to use them. We have learned from other cities that have done similar programs. Not everybody will use them. So that means that while that money is locked down right now, some of it will be freed up. And so we'll be able to re-release again in July. So stay tuned on that. And again, the council office will definitely get information about that out to you. The home energy rebates, today is the last day for air source heat pump projects to submit for their rebate. Again, only in this first round. We still have plenty of funding available for electric vehicle charger infrastructure, a panel upgrade, as well as the hot water heater upgrades. So other elements of our program are still open for applications. It's only the air source heat pumps that are closed right now. And we will be opening those again. We expect to do that in October for the beginning of the heating season. And now as to your specific case, it's a little hard for me to explore that one exactly, but I do understand the return on investment can be challenging. And if your income doesn't qualify for our greater assistance, our higher financial need assistance programs, then you might be in a pickle. Now, there are financing opportunities available, at least through some contractors. So that could be worth looking at, that there may be others that could provide that for you that is worth considering. But I do hear you on the investment that if you don't think you're going to get the max utility out of it while you're living in the home, the next question is it enough of an investment that it will pay off when it comes time to sell your home? That is not a decision I can make for you. That might be something worth talking about with a real estate agent, so as they read the market. So I'm so glad that you're with us on this journey. And it really is a journey. We're all learning about it as we go. But I think what's been great about this program is, again, just like I said with the e-bikes, there is a demand for these products. We just have to give people enough money to spur the market and to get that interest out there. I think people really do want these in their homes, especially in District 1. You got a lot of homes that were built before air conditioning was necessary. So you have a furnace and you don't have air conditioning. If you get an air source heat pump, you get both. You have both heating and cooling in one unit. And it can be really transformative, especially for people with chronic health conditions. Again, babies, children, older adults, people who really, and frankly, any of us who don't want to breathe wildfire smoke in the middle of summer, right? You want to be able to close your windows. So thank you for joining us on that journey, and stay tuned. We will have more money available.
Awesome. And I'll just throw in a question that I got from my husband as we considered the heat pump is, does that really heat and cool as well as traditional? He's an old-fashioned guy. So
that's okay. You know what? Part of what we're doing is we're actually gathering case studies from the people who are doing this work. And once we started coming out with this, we actually started to hear from people who've already done it. So we are gathering that information now so that we can share it with people. So you can hear from folks just like you who actually have this equipment in their home, and they can tell you how it's working.
Awesome. That's great. Because it's, this technology has been around actually for a while, as far as I understand, but it hasn't become the norm for a variety of reasons. And so there's always some questions. What you're used to is, obviously always more comfortable. So I think, sharing those stories and just spreading the word and education that making the switch easier is awesome. All righty. So, I have some questions about recycling. So in support of the recycling changes going through, are there plans? So I know that, again, CASR partners a lot, and it's a new department. So there's also waste services, and but this question's about hard to recycle items. Again, I don't know if you can answer this, but are there any programs or anything CASR is doing to make it easier to recycle hard to recycle items? So I know that there's like drop-off days and stuff, but even things like plastic film, stuff like that.
That's a good question. So no, that's not us, but we're very interested in it. So when it comes to the actual collection of waste, that is done by solid waste management for the city. And but you know what, they only pick up trash from 20% of the households. And so we really need to be looking at citywide policies. And I could put this in the chat, Naomi, I'll send it to you later. There is a place on the city's website where you can actually search the recycling directory. You can put in the type of material and then find out if there are any organizations or businesses in the region that will take that material. Plastic film is a really challenging one. Honestly, at this time, it is a landfill item, which is unfortunate. But that's because we want to keep our recycling stream as clean as possible so that it doesn't get rejected. You know, that the sorting centers or the recycling receivers, they can actually reject a load from a truck if it has too many materials in it that are not recyclable, and then that truck just drives straight to the landfill instead. So as much as we have the ambition to recycle things like plastic film and other types of plastic that are plastic, but they're not recyclable, we unfortunately do need to put them in your landfill bin. But we'll definitely work on it.
It's so painful.
It is painful. It hurts me too.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, here's This is an interesting question. So District 1, as you may know, has had a lot of demolition of existing homes, a lot of new construction. Is there anything CASR is doing involved in construction and also reuse of homes? And I'll put a shout out that Councilman Sandoval is actually looking into, with Councilman Cashman, potentially a deconstruction ordinance or some other approach to mandating that there's more careful reuse of our existing materials and the embodied energy that's in our buildings. But yeah, anything.
Yeah, I think that this whole category is definitely under that banner of we need a new ordinance for some of these things. So deconstruction ordinance is a great start. There are also preservation ordinances that I think are being considered, or building reuse, especially more in the commercial sector than residential. But there's actually an initiative on the ballot this fall called Waste No More. Now, it is a citizen-led ballot initiative, so I, as a city official, can neither endorse for or against it, but I can tell you it exists. And included in that would be a requirement that construction and demolition debris would need to be recycled in Denver. That is an ordinance we do not yet have. And so not only would that help manage the waste that comes from demolition, but it might actually also encourage that reuse market, which goes really hand in hand with the deconstruction ordinance that you're talking about. So that it's on the horizon. It's very possible that we will have that ordinance in just a few months.
Oh, that's super interesting. I didn't even know about that.
I can send you that link too.
Thank you. And yes, thank you for the clarification that as a city employee, we just got the training, since it's, started to be elections and ballots. We can present objective information, always can do that, especially if it's asked, but we cannot make any even motion of supporting or opposing anything in particular. It's always a fine line to walk. All right, let's see. Is there anything else coming in? Slide deck. Oh, how would someone, I think you already answered this a little bit, but how would someone get involved in the Sustainability Advisory Committee? Is it only during those kind of open, you said like kind of in spring or late winter, there's openings?
On my end, you were breaking up there, but I do understand the question.
Yeah.
So right now, we don't fill empty seats in the middle of the year, and we just seated new people. So I don't expect there to be empty seats for a little while, but I will, again, more links. All of the meetings are posted to our website, and they are available on, I believe we do stream them on Facebook. And so anybody is welcome to at least attend the meeting all the meetings that way. And I think a lot of the committees often do stream their meetings as well. We're getting back into in-person meetings now. So for example, there's a committee that's meeting right now at a park. That one's not being live streamed. We haven't figured that one out yet. But so for now, we can connect you to the people who are on those committees so that you can talk with them. Part of their job is to actually be engaging with the people in communities that they represent. They're not elected by a community or anything like that. It's an open application, and the selection's made by city staff, but everybody who's there wears multiple hats, right? Whether it's their personal identity or where they live or their profession. And so we can definitely connect you to members of the SAC so that you can start talking with them. And then our open application, again, is usually in the early spring, late winter, early spring.
Awesome. All right, well, we're pretty much at time, and we got through all the questions. Thank you both so much. This department is really fascinating, and so glad that it exists. Denver may be behind in things like recycling and stuff, but you're pushing us light years ahead. And so hopefully all those links, again, we'll make them available. And if anybody is interested, I love hearing about the task force and the community engagement and all the work you're doing. I know District 1 has a lot of people who really care about sustainability. We have Northside Sustainability Alliance and long traditions of individuals I know with a lot of activism in this area. So I'm sure they'll be interested in that.
All right, well, thank you for having us, District 1.
Thank you so much to both of you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.